Hello, I'm so glad that you've taken the time to join me today. We are going to be talking about how to have better coworkers, and you don't even have to leave your job to do it. So I'm excited to be here today and share this information. I promise that we will not keep you very long at all. We just want to get this information to you, give you an opportunity to learn how to reduce toxicity in your own workplace, and then give you the chance to take a look at the book and the test and all of that wonderful stuff. So you have joined us for Better Coworkers by Monday. We are reducing the toxic workplace, and we're going to talk today mostly about what your shape is. So moving on quickly, I want to tell you who I am. My name is Laura Wing, and I'm the author of Better Coworkers by Monday and also the book A Squirrel Peed on Me. And we're not going to talk about that one today. We're simply going to talk about how to have better coworkers by Monday. But you can find both of these books on Amazon, and you can get that in paperback or Kindle edition. So if that's something that you're ready to read, then I recommend you hop on over to Amazon and get your own copy today. So what are some of the objectives that we'll be looking at in this short webinar workshop? Well, let's take a look. We're going to identify your specific communication shapes and styles. We are going to understand your coworker shapes and communication styles. We will identify your specific commodity. Yes, everybody has a commodity. And let's see, we'll understand your coworkers' commodities. In other words, ways that you can get them to trust you without begging for it. You'll understand and identify what a true introvert versus a true extrovert is, and it's not exactly what you might think. And then you'll be able to apply this information about communication shapes, commodities, and energy in the workplace to reduce workplace toxicity. So I don't want to just, get all caught up in this. We're just going to move along quickly. And by the time we're done, you'll have a good understanding of what's going on here. Well, what is your shape? What are we talking about when we're talking about shape? I'm not talking about your physical shape. Are you out of shape? Do you need to go to the gym? I'm not talking about that. We're talking about your personality shape. You are either a diamond, a triangle, a circle, or a rectangle, and this will determine how you communicate in the workplace and how you respond to other people's communication in the workplace. I'm going to tell you a little story, and it is very important that you remember this story because we are going to need this information later as we go through this webinar. So in 1918, a man by the name of Francis Ivan Bluff was one of the first people in his community to own a motor vehicle. And on one particular Sunday afternoon, Francis Ivan Bluff decided that he would load his dog Skipper up into his new car and they would go for a drive. He took a drive around a very steep mountain road. And as he's coming around the corner at 75 miles per hour, he hit a guardrail and he went flying over the side of this mountain road and he plummeted 11 feet to his death. When the fire department came and pulled him out of the wreckage, it was obvious that he died probably instantly. And they had a funeral within a week for Francis Ivan Bluff. And to this day, that road is called the Francis Ivan Bluff Highway. So I'm going to want you to remember that story. We're going to talk about that later. Now, there's something that you will have the opportunity to do when you get your hands on the book, Better Coworkers by Monday. In that book, there is a test. It's an actual quiz. It looks, this is the first couple of lines out of that test there, and you'll go through and you'll start circling words that most apply to you. So out of busy, organized, friendly, quiet, you'll circle whichever one applies to you. Competition, tidy, compassion, curious, whatever word stands out to you that you either identify with, appreciate, just like, you'll circle that. And then you'll go through, there's about 28 words, and you'll get to the bottom and you'll add up your score and you'll find out what shape you are. And then if you scored highest in some of these different columns, then you'll know what shape you are, whether you're a diamond, triangle, circle, or rectangle. Well, I'm going to give you just a thumbnail sketch today of what these different shapes are. So we're going to take a look first at diamond people. Diamond people are big picture people. They're impulsive, multitask a lot. They move quickly from one task to another. They are competitive. They think quickly. They're more concerned with the outcome rather than the process. And really, they're very good at many things, but they make wonderful EMTs, police officers, actors, managers, reporters. And these are your people who make decisions based on a combination of facts and emotions. Diamond people are people who we would say have a lot of energy, and they go from one task to another. They get bored rather quickly. They're the kind of people who like to have a task that is challenging and exciting to them. And when they're done, they want to tell you all about it. They want to let you know what accomplishments they've made. Our next shape that we're going to take a look at is the triangle. Triangle people. Triangle people are rule followers. They are routine, organized. They prefer support roles, but I want to tell you, they also make wonderful managers. They are not impulsive. They take time to adjust to change. That doesn't mean, I don't think anybody likes change. It doesn't mean they resist change. It just means that it takes them a little bit of time to adjust to change. They want to know what's expected of them. So if they have a task in front of them, they want to know what the expectation of conclusion for that task is, and they work well with itineraries. They make wonderful administrative assistants, bookkeepers, office managers, anything where they can stay organized and get into a routine. And we need these people in the workplace for sure, because if you're a diamond like I am, then you have a tendency not to stay as organized maybe as these people do. And so they're great. These are the people who can stay organized for you and kind of tell you what to do next. And they make decisions based on facts and emotions. Mostly they deal in facts, but they're able to tap into how they feel about the situation and how people around them feel as well. The next shape that we're going to talk about is the circle personality. Circle people are sensitive. They prefer strong leadership. They're organized. They follow directions. They can multitask sometimes if they're not distracted. They're great nurturers. They tend to be artistic, and they are wonderful team players. These people make great teachers, counselors, nurses, daycare providers. These are the people that make decisions based primarily on feelings. So it's not that they ignore the facts, but they're more concerned with how people feel in the workplace. If we were to have a big meeting in the workplace and announce some kind of a change, they're going to worry about how that change will affect their coworkers. And they're very sensitive to their coworkers who may be upset by some of the changes. Next, we have the rectangle personality. Rectangle people are information seekers. They like to gather facts, and they have a strong need to be right. They're very scientific in the way they think. They are concerned with process and the end goal. 1 + 1 needs to equal 2 for them, and they care a lot about research. Because of that, they make wonderful engineers, doctors, scientists, lawyers, anything where they can do some research and come up with facts. Facts are very important. And some of them, some rectangle people, are good debaters, and they will argue a point if they know that they're right. And because of that, they make all of their decisions based on facts. They don't let feelings come into the picture. They are bottom line people. And they're the ones who may say to you, I said I loved you last year. If anything changes, I'll let you know. These are your rectangles, very fact-oriented people. Remember, I told you would need to remember the story about Francis Ivan Bluff and his dog Skipper? This is really important. As I told that story to you, if you were a diamond, you were probably just enthralled with the overall story. You want to know what was going to happen next, how the story ended. The story itself was pretty exciting to you. If you were a triangle, because I prefaced the story with you'll need to remember this information, you paid very close attention to the details. You wanted to know what information we were going to use later. If you were a circle person, the only thing you were really concerned about is what happened to Skipper. Because the story doesn't tell us what happened to Skipper. We don't know what happened to the dog. And you were very concerned about that. Rectangle people, however, said that's not logical. In 1918, most cars didn't go that fast. If somebody only dropped 11 feet off the side of the road, more than likely they would have survived, even back then, especially since cars didn't go that fast. They may even, rectangle people, may even have gotten on Google and checked to see if there was a Francis Ivan Bluff Road anywhere. So yeah, that pretty much sums up how the different shapes respond to different stories, different environments, and different ideas. So normally during a workshop, we would pause here and we would spend 10 minutes doing some activity, which would really highlight and identify everybody's individual shapes and how they communicate with each other. But because we're just on this webinar, we're not going to be able to do that today. The next thing I want to talk to you about very quickly are workplace commodities. There are 4 different commodities that people trade in the workplace, and those are accolades, work help, inclusion, and tokens. So we know, we've heard the word accolades all the time. We know what the word accolade is, and that's just a fancy word for words of praise. I remember one time my boss on a job that I was on had been reading a book, and it was all about giving your employees some validation and accolades and just compliments. One day I popped in his office. He said, I realize I haven't given you enough kudos. And so I jokingly said to him, well, I will stop in every day so you can give me a kudo for the next month. And I did. I popped into his office and I'd say to him, I'm here for my kudo. And he'd make up, some accolade that he had for me, some compliment. And I think even at one point, one of his compliments was that he was complimenting me on my tenacity for sticking to the fact that I said I was going to pop my head in his office every day. So the next one that we have is work help. And work help simply means spending time helping somebody do their job. Okay. It shows that you're willing to give up your time, even though you may be very busy during the day, to help somebody else. The next one is inclusion, and inclusion is exactly what it sounds like. It's including others in what's going on in the workplace. The last one is tokens. And a token, we usually think that tokens are bribes or money or a reward of some kind or a gift. And to an extent they are, but these are not things that, it's not quid pro quo, you do this for me, I'll do this for you kind of thing. This is not a bribe. If I give you $50 and I want you to type up my report for me. That's not what this is. So what are we talking about when we talk about commodities? Commodities are things which help people learn to trust one another in the workplace. And before we get, well, I'll tell you what, let me just back up here for a second. We'll dive in just a little bit more. So, okay, if your commodity, your personal commodity is accolades, in other words, you thrive better in the workplace when somebody compliments you, then more than likely you are going to be the kind of person who gives compliments and accolades to other people. What you receive in order to trust your coworkers is also the same thing that you trade in. So I had a couple of people who were working with each other, and this one of them, she was constantly giving her little gifts, bringing her brownies to work. She had extra coupons for lunch one day. She gave her some of the coupons, and she was doing all of these things, and this lady never reciprocated. But instead, she was always coming into her office and saying, can I help you? Is there something I can do to help you? And it was very frustrating for her because she felt like the lady was judging her, that what, you think I can't get my work done by myself? But that's not what was going on at all. Accolades or commodities, I'm sorry, commodities are things that people use to communicate with one another in a positive manner. So here she was showing this coworker that I appreciate you, I value you, I like you, and so I'm going to give you my coupons for lunch, my brownies, um, a plant for your office, little things like that. I'm going to physically give you something to show you, because I'm a real token person, to show you that I care about you. In the meantime, her coworker was a work help commodity person. She showed that she cared about her by saying, I'm going to give up part of my time during the day to help you. So when the two of them came to understand this, what what my friend found out was that she didn't need to be giving this woman a whole bunch of tokens in order to show her that she appreciated her. She needed to give her part of her time. And in reverse, her coworker needed to be a little bit more mindful that my friend liked tokens and maybe offer her candy from her desk or a certificate of some kind, and that she didn't necessarily want her to ask her to give up her time all of a sudden. So commodities are things that we trade in order to communicate with other people effectively. We're going to talk about the different levels of communication. There's basic necessary, there's intermediate, and there's intimate. So why are these different levels of communication so important? Well, one word, and that word is trust. When we communicate at certain levels, we learn to build trust with other people. When we look at a communication triangle model, it's very simple. We start with basic necessary. This is when you might say to someone, excuse me, do you know where the train station is? Can you give me directions to such and such a place? Pardon me, do you know where the restroom is? That person gives us an answer. The train station is 4 blocks north or 3 blocks to the west, whatever it might be. Odds are we're never going to talk to that person again. We have communicated with them because it was necessary. It was basic. Then we move into what's called basic communication. So suppose you are new on a job and you're getting to know your coworkers. Now you know where your office is. You've moved beyond basic necessary. You know where your office is, your office supplies, all the basic details. Now you're learning about somebody, and you might say to them, so where did you grow up? Oh, I grew up in Chicago, or I grew up wherever. And you find out that you have something in common with these people. This is how you learn about the people around you. If you start asking questions of your coworkers, but they don't ask questions back, the odds are you're going to move back down. If you notice the arrows, you can move up in communication and you can move down in communication. You'll probably move back down to basic necessary. If, however, they start asking you questions, also, you feel free to move up to the intermediate stage. And that is how we build trust with our coworkers in the workplace. That's how we build trust with anybody in communication, making friends, going out on a date, and in the workplace. At the intermediate stage, this is where now you find out you have some things in common with somebody, a foundation to sort of build your conversation around. And you might find out that your coworker really enjoys boats. I'll just use that as an example. They enjoy boats. Now, you can maybe find an article that has to do with boats in a magazine, and you bring it into them. You say, hey, John, I found this article about boats that I thought you would enjoy. What you've just done is shown that person that you're taking an interest in the things that they are interested in. Now you start sharing a few more details about yourself, and this is where most friendships begin to happen. This is where a lot of camaraderie starts to take place. It is up to both you and the other person to decide whether or not you want to move up to the intimate stage. Now, don't be afraid of that word. This is the place that people get hung up on a lot. They think intimacy has to do with marriage or sexuality. It has nothing to do with that at all, not in this context. Certainly, those are intimate relationships. But in an intimate relationship, you now trust that person so much that you're telling them real details about your feelings, your life, things that you would never share with somebody else. And the way that you know whether they're safe to do that is whether or not they respond to you at those other levels. So you can move up the scale with somebody or down the scale at any time. All right, moving up or down. The last thing we're going to talk about is how a person recharges. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Let's take a look at an introvert first. Introverted people are not necessarily shy. They need alone time to recharge, and they can become drained when around people for too long. I want to throw out this myth buster here. Introverted people do not hate other people. They're not people haters. So this all has to do with how a person's battery gets recharged. For an introvert, if they spend too much time around other people, they are physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausted. They need time to just spend with themselves, some more than others. So at the end of a long work day, they might go home, kick back, turn on the television, or maybe read a good book, and just kind of tune everybody out, turn off their phone. They have had it. They're done with people because people exhaust them. Doesn't mean they don't like them. Doesn't mean they don't even want to be around people. And it doesn't mean they're not friendly. They can be very friendly people even in the workplace. It simply means that they need time alone to recharge. When somebody is in the workplace and they're put into a position to have to be extroverted all day, but they're truly an introvert, that can be extremely exhausting for them. The opposite to that would be the extrovert. So an extrovert is not always outgoing. That's something that we think that they are. They need to be around people to recharge. They get drained when they spend too much time alone. And one of the myths that we need to just dispel right now is that they are not always the life of the party. We tend to associate people who are extroverts with, oh, you can tell he's extroverted, he's the life of the party. That's not necessarily the case. They can be shy, but they need to be around people. If they are on a job where they don't have a lot of interaction with people and they go home and maybe there isn't a lot of interaction with somebody when they go home, after too many days of that or too much time alone, they begin to get drained and a little depressed. And unlike the introvert who wants that time alone. And being around people doesn't even necessarily mean that they have to talk to everybody, be the center of attention. It can be something so simple as just going to the mall and just people watching. It's being around people, period, that helps them recharge. And they feel better knowing that they're not alone in society. We're going to talk about what the shape of your job is. Are you a diamond? Are you a triangle? Are you a circle? Are you a rectangle? Are you in a diamond job? So a diamond job is a place where diamonds can, move from activity to activity. They like projects. They like, pardon me, they like the excitement of the job. A triangle job is one that is pretty routine. We're going to do this. We know what our schedule is. We have an expectation of an end result. We know what that is. A circle job is a place where a circle person can nurture and interact with people, maybe customers or other coworkers, students, patients, things like that. A rectangle job is a place where somebody can take their time to do their work and add facts together to come up with absolute. So maybe a loan officer or banker or something to that nature. Well, what kind of job are you in? Do you know the shape of your job itself? All right, we're going to take a moment to put all of this together. What shape, commodity, and vert, in other words, extrovert or introvert, are you? I want you to think of some of your coworkers and what they might be. Now, we're doing this on a webinar, so obviously there's no one in the room who's the same shape as you, or not the same shape, unless you're listening to this webinar with somebody. But if we were in a room together, you would get to discuss your preferences when it comes to communication and then how you'll take that back to the workplace. But And for purposes of this webinar, I want you to start thinking about your shape. And you won't know exactly what shape you are. You're right now just kind of getting a thumbnail sketch and a general idea. But let's suppose you are a triangle person. And triangle people, remember, are people who like to be organized, and they are very much so itinerary people. So let's say you're an office manager and you're in your office and you are writing out some payroll stuff. And you know that you have a deadline that has to be done by 4 o'clock that day. And all of a sudden, a diamond person comes bounding into your office with some exciting news. They just got done with their latest project and they want to tell you all about it. There is a very good chance that you're going to be annoyed with that person. You might consider a diamond person to be flaky. You might think that they are too high energy. They don't stay focused. Maybe they come in and say, hey, can you make some copies for me? So you might view them as lazy. There's just a lot of things that could get on your nerves. In the meantime, if you're a diamond person and you've just bounded into a triangle person's office and they don't respond to you with the same level of enthusiasm that you have, you might be thinking they're really cold, they're very mean, they're just hard to get along with. Well, that's not necessarily the case. What's probably going on is that triangle person has just been interrupted. And because it takes triangle people a few more minutes to process change, and that includes a momentary change to their schedule, they're thinking, I have this payroll stuff that has to be out by 4 o'clock. I am an itinerary person, I am a schedule person, and my schedule has just been interrupted. So they're trying to shift gears. They're trying to go from focusing on what they were focusing on, because they're not typically, it doesn't mean they can't do more than one thing at once. It just means it takes them longer to shift. They're not typically multitask people. So they have to shift their focus and their thought to whatever it is that you are presenting them. And that can be tiresome for them. So in that process of them shifting their thought process to focus on you, you may come across with this idea that they're cold, they don't like you, they are bothered by you, and to some extent they may be, and you're not going to deal with them anymore. And I have seen so many conflicts in the workplace get resolved simply because people took the workshop, they took the test, and they started discussing their shapes with one another. So how do you fix that? Well, there's a lot of great information in the book that tells you exactly how to fix that problem, but I'm going to give you an example. One way would be for the diamond person to not bound into that office without saying something so simple as, is this a good time for you? Because triangle people want their time to be respected. So you come in and you say, is this a good time for you? I have something I'd like to present to you, or I have a question, or whatever it might be. More than likely, they're going to either say yes, or can you give me an hour, or can you give me 30 minutes? And it's up to, if it's not, an emergency or super important, you can say, sure, I'll be back in an hour, or whatever the case may be. If it's something you need right away, you might have to tell them that. But just the understanding that the two of you think at different speeds and you function at a different level of communication will make all the difference in the world. And so another example would be, say, a circle person who is very, 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 very in tune with other people's emotions. They're going to ask somebody, how was your weekend? How are you doing? Are you okay? Things like that. And a rectangle person is really only concerned with necessary information. They don't need all the background clatter and life. And you might be annoying a rectangle person by asking them all of these seemingly intimate personal questions, emotional questions, and coming up with decisions based on emotion, while they come to decisions based purely on fact. Show me the chart. What are the numbers? How is this related to what I'm working on right now? Those types of things. So you can learn how to communicate effectively. Circles and rectangles can effectively communicate with each other, even though they are completely opposites on the shape wheel. So we teach a lot of that in the workshops. It's fun. It's so much fun to watch people come to an understanding of each other. Knowing somebody's commodity in the workplace can reduce a lot of stress and tension as well. Again, I go back to the story of somebody who's constantly giving little tokens while the other person is maybe just giving accolades or time inclusion. And then, are they introverted or extroverted? And you may or may not know, but if you're dealing with somebody who is a true introvert and you're extremely extroverted, you were probably exhausting them. And respecting the fact that people need alone time, downtime, quiet time, and just time away from you is important. And the reverse is true. If you're an introvert and understand that you have a extroverted coworker who seems to be spending a lot of time alone, take some time out of your schedule to go have a short conversation with them so they're not exhausted all day. All right, and you can probably kind of get an idea of what shape you might think your coworkers are, but again, without taking the test, there's no way to know. So I strongly encourage you to pick up a copy of Better Coworkers by Monday and take a look. And give you some real fast bonus information before we wrap things up. Some of the things that you're going to learn in the book are the different roles that people grew up with, and they're still playing out those roles in the workplace. There are 5 different basic roles that people grow up with as children. They're either the caretaker, hero, lost child, scapegoat, or mascot in their family. So you'll get all of that information in the book, and it will tell you, for example, if you grew up as the lost child, odds are you're going to get a job where you function well on that job because you're kind of left alone. If you are the caretaker, I've seen so many people who go into the helping fields, nurses, teachers, daycare providers, people who get to be caretakers in real life too, and how we carry those into the workplace and why it's important to understand that about your coworkers. So you can get a copy of the workbook, Better Coworkers by Monday. And if you were at the workshop, then you would be able to get a copy of the book after the presentation, or you can always pick it up on Amazon paperback. So just for attending this webinar today, just for attending this, you can get a 15% discount if you book within 5 business days of participating in this webinar. And all you have to do is message me, let me know what date you listen to the webinar, and we can work out a discount for you. And we also do workplace analysis. That's where we do more than just come and give a workshop. That's where we actually look at all of your employees' tests, all of your coworkers' tests, and we tell you whether you have a circle person who might be functioning in a rectangle job, or you have a diamond person who might be functioning in a circle job. And if these are good employees and your organization is able to, we sometimes recommend that you move people around and you shift them around, or at least provide a different type of environment so that you can increase your retention. This way people don't leave your company. And I've seen a lot of companies who have problems with retention, and most of it can be avoided. So we can help you with that. Well, that is pretty much all I have for you today. And thank you again for stopping by and listening to this short webinar, this short little presentation. You can get a copy of Better Coworkers by Monday simply by going to Amazon and pick up your copy there, either on Kindle or paperback edition. I love getting to hear from all of my listeners. I love getting to hear from my readers and people who've stopped by my Facebook page. You can go on Facebook and search Better Coworkers by Monday. You can find our Facebook page, listen to some of the podcasts that are up on there, and get more information on how to get your hands on the book. Also, if you have a question about any of your coworkers, if you have a situation at work that you don't know how to handle, drop me a message in my inbox and I will be more than happy to answer. We answer a lot of those emails that I get on the podcast. Thank you again for joining us for this short webinar, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.